Hello and welcome back. My name is Brian with the Accounting Guys. Today we're going to be going inside of Lightspeed DMS, looking at the chart of accounts, how to add an account, remove an account, some key things to consider before changing your chart. So let's get started. All right, so before we look at Lightspeed, we're actually going to look in Excel just a little bit to explain the different accounts. So we're going to talk about there's a difference between consolidated and department level or detail level. And so in general, in Lightspeed, you've got your balance sheet, you have your income statement, and it's going to be separated by an account code. And the default in their system, assets start with the 2, liabilities and equities start with the 3. As a consolidated level, the balance sheet is the entire company. You don't have a balance sheet separate for each different department. Let's go down to the profit and loss here. So on your income statement, you have a consolidated view, and then you have a departmental view as well. And on the consolidated view, you'll have a more summarized version of your income statement. And revenue accounts are 4s. The F&I department's typically a 5. Cost of goods sold are 6. Expenses 7. Other income expenses 8 and 9. And you can see, 4s and 5s and 8s are revenue. 6, 7, and 9s are typically expenses. One of the benefits to using Lightspeed over another software is you not only get your P&L based off of the company, but it's very simple and has a lot of mapping and things inside of it built in to where you can then break that down even further. So here we have detail accounts in the different departments. So we've got -10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, typically broken out like this if you are a power sports dealer. If you're a marine dealer, it'll have a little bit different. You don't usually break out new and used units. You definitely can, but these are different departments inside of those accounts. So when I say dash, it's going to take the account from the consolidated income statement. So if it's revenue, it's going to be 4000-10 if it's in sales, or -40 if it's a revenue account in the parts department or something like that. So the dash means the separate department of the company. Okay, so now we're going to look at a report in Lightspeed. It's the 110 chart of accounts listing. And this is something that is stock inside of Lightspeed. I've just added some colors to it so that we can explain it a little better. So here we can see we've got the account, the description. All of these numbers are considered the level. This is how Lightspeed totals the balances, and I'll go over that in a little bit more detail. Then we have account type. Over on this side, we're showing the department in a different color. I'm going to explain here the difference where we've got header accounts in blue. Those don't have anything to do with how anything totals. It's just presentation. So if you go in Lightspeed and pull up your balance sheet, you'll have these lines. You won't see anything else in there. And then you've got total accounts, which are going to total everything above it and before it. So this is where a lot of dealers make mistakes when they're creating accounts in their chart, is they don't recognize that there's a level here, and they don't recognize that there's a sequence number. So in Lightspeed, you can click on the account number and it will sort by it. And then they'll go to an account like 22,300 and they'll add another one. That's actually not best practice. You should be sorted by the sequence number because it's automatically going to have that level in there in the correct level for you, and it doesn't create mistakes. So the way that I typically talk to dealers about how Lightspeed does the math is it goes first by the sequence number, so top to bottom, and then it goes left to right on the level. And so as you see here, these 6s for all of these accounts are going to total into total cash contraction equivalents. And as you go down, it continues to do that same thing. Here we've got a detail account. So inside of detail accounts, you can actually post entries, and you can go into the history and you can see the ins and outs on that account. Another account type is consolidated. So I'm going to scroll down to our income statement where we have consolidated. So if you were to go to account 43,000 and go to the history, you're not going to see any detail because that specific account doesn't have entries in it. It's a consolidation of other detail accounts that are underneath it or behind it. So typically in this case with new major units, that's going to correspond with the department new major unit revenue accounts that are in our -10. So when I'm going to scroll down here to our departmental P&L. So here we can see it's switched from our consolidated department being our total company. Now we're in our new major unit department, and all of these -10s are going to be linked with that revenue account for 42,000 in the consolidated view. So now let's go into Lightspeed and look at what it looks like inside of the software. Okay, to get to the chart of accounts, we're going to go General Ledger, Chart of Accounts. So again, just like that Excel report, this is the screen here. You can add different columns by right-clicking and adding a few things here. Always remember when you're going to adjust the chart that we're going to sort by our sequence number just by clicking on it, so it goes smallest to largest. And then we can go into this section where we can add and remove an account from there. So we're going to go find one of those consolidated level accounts. And so here we have type, and we're going to look for a C for consolidated. And so here I've got a C. I'm going to click on this, and at the right, we can see these are the accounts that make up the balance on our consolidated level. All right, so back to our chart. You can have as many accounts as you want. You can continue to add departments as well, and you can set up a lot of mapping in your system to where it can get very detailed and defined, which is great. One thing that I do like to make sure that dealers are aware of is as you continue to add to your chart, your bookkeepers or accountants, they need to understand that those accounts are created, and if they need to update mapping, they can do that, or if they're coding things, creating invoices or journal entries, making expenses, they need to understand that they need to switch what accounts those are going to, so that way it will start to populate that data. There is not a way to have the historical data move from one account to another account without getting help from Lightspeed support, and there's some cases where that's not a possibility either. So it's something that you want to think about before adding a lot of accounts and how much effort is there in getting that data. The second thing to think about is you have so many reports available through your parts menu, service or sales, rental, where you can get a lot more information out of front-end level reports than from your financial data. For example, you might not want to have an account. So if we go to our new unit sales, for example, you might not want to have a revenue account for make, model, body type, length, weight. Could you do that in your chart? Yes, and you could have thousands of accounts. But you'd probably run a front-end report because it already has all that information. You can still see margins in the different statistical data there. You just don't have to have your chart be exact. And thinking about when you're building your chart of accounts or making it more detailed, there's two different types of reporting. There's internal reporting that you use for management, and then there's external reporting that you are going to be sending to your financials to a bank or some other third party to review. And so the more accounts you create in your chart makes it harder and harder for you to have a consolidated or limited view to your external parties. But that's something that you can do in Excel or by building other custom reports with Lightspeed to kind of merge it together. But just in the stock reports in Lightspeed, it's the internal report. So I'm going to go to a balance sheet here. So as you add accounts in your chart, it's just going to pop it into your balance sheet. There's not a way for you to make this like a drop down where all of these get consolidated into one. Now the income statement is a little different, where we have these consolidated accounts. So we're not seeing every single departmental account. We're just seeing the total basically. So the income statement, you can do that a little easier than you can on a balance sheet. You'd have to create another department, and there's ways to do it, but it's a little bit more complicated, and it's something you have to keep up with. All right, so let's talk about the steps when you're going to add a new account. So we're going to open our chart of accounts, and we're going to first make sure our sequence is in the right order. Then you're going to find an account that is like kind. So for example, I want to add a new expense type. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm not going to use this filter because that can cause some issues to search the account. But I'm going to go ahead and just scroll down here. Here we have laundry and uniforms. Maybe we don't want that as one account, and we want to split it and have laundry as one account and uniforms as the next. So now that I'm in the correct sequence, I'm going to hit new, and then you can add it either before or after. So we'll choose add before, and it's going to require you to choose a new code that we haven't used before. So the account code has to be distinct. It's separate from any other account code that you have. At this point, if it's on the balance sheet, you just hit save and you're done. If it's on your income statement, right now I'm on my consolidated statement. So this is not going to show any history in this account until I link accounts over on in my consolidated view. And so now I need to go down, because this is my company level, I would need to scroll down into my departments and do the same thing and find laundry and uniforms, add new, add before. We're going to have the same account code here, but it's going to have a -10 because now it's in its own department. And then I can add a row and select that consolidated account to link it with. If there's history inside of the account, then you're not able to delete it, but you can inactivate it also just by double clicking on the account and unchecking this box here at the top to make it inactive. There might be something in the system that is mapped to the account that you might have to change the mapping first before you do that. All right, let's talk about these buttons up here at the top. So we already hit new. We talked about new. We talked about the delete button. I'm going to skip to the end on recalculate. That's basically going to just go through the system and redo the math. And it's sometimes something that will correct a different error in your system on occasion. And so that's our recalculate button. The reindex button, it takes your sequence number and it resets it to the next 1,000. So for example, this laundry and uniforms account that we created, it automatically, when we hit before or after, it gave us the number in between. So when I hit resequence, it's just going to reset the sequence number basically on a reindex. So we're going to hit yes so you can just see what happens here. So now every account following this account, this one now became 338,000. Every account following that is just ticking up by another 1,000. And so that's what the reindex button does. Subdivide. So this is used when typically more on the sales side of things. Let's say you only had a section for new units and now you want to break it out by manufacturer. You can go into the account that you want to subdivide. So let's say it's this one and we hit subdivide. It's going to give you some instructions on what you're going to be subdividing. It will create a header and a total account with that same description. And then you can add however many accounts that you would like to in order to get all of the detail that you want in that section. And so that's helpful with creating multiple accounts at one time. So now just one quick reminder on the header accounts in Lightspeed. When I go to my financial, that's where you see these lines with you don't have an account code, there's no balance. That's just the description of the accounts. The totals are going to total the other accounts typically above it as long as the leveling is in the right location. You can add some more formatting here where you've got the lines above the total. When you're inside of an account, you have these format options where you can indent the columns to move the line over a little bit. You can skip some lines to break up the spacing. So we have a little bit more spacing between total sales and cost of goods sold, where they've added to skip some lines. And then you have some underlines. If it is a total account, it will let you choose the type of underline you want. So let's go ahead and just look at that for a second. We'll just open up this account. You can say if you want it to be a single or a double or both, top and bottom. You can work that in and create kind of format the stock reports in Lightspeed in the chart. Something else that's beneficial to keep in mind with Lightspeed is there's multiple versions of financial statements. So you've got your standard trial balance, you've got a balance sheet, you've got your P&L. You also have the dealer financial report inside of Lightspeed that looks a little bit different, where you can kind of consolidate things a little differently. You have spreadsheet reports and other custom reports that can pull this data out. So you really have the ability to create any type of financial statement that you want by getting the data, but you want to be thinking about, again, how many accounts and what do I want my reports to look like internally for management, and what do I want my reports to look like externally when I'm sending it somewhere else. If you have any questions related to the setup and whether you should use the default chart of accounts, our suggestion is yes, you should use the standard chart that comes from Lightspeed. You may not be ready to do departmental accounting where you've got it segregated and you're distributing all the balances, but that's the first thing you're going to want to do when you're looking to get better in accounting. That's what the different 20 groups we'll talk about is, well, let's break that down by department and find out which one is creating the issue, or will that give us insight as to what we need to do as management to make a different decision and go forward. And so again, I would suggest using the default chart that comes with Lightspeed, because this is the chart that, one, it will be more comparable to other dealers across the industry. It will be easier as far as working with Lightspeed because they're very familiar with the chart and how things should look industry wide based off of that. It allows you to do what the biggest and greatest dealerships do, right? By using that departmental P&L and the export functionality, because you have it broken out in the way that it is. So if you have other questions, feel free to reach out to us. Happy to do some one-on-one training with you, or going through your chart and analyzing if your trial balance is out of balance or if the totals aren't totaling properly, and we can help you get that adjusted. All right, that does it for chart of account setup in Lightspeed. Be sure to comment below if you have any questions regarding the video, or if you'd like to suggest another video. Those are our favorite ones to make. We'll talk to you soon.